Here's a story about Dave Matthews you probably never heard. WPLJ, pretty big station in New York City, been around for 48, 49 years, whatever it was, just went off the air this last Friday. And PLJ is a significant station for Dave Matthews Band fans because I feel like, Under the Table and Dreaming came out and it was a huge hit and everybody played Ants Marching. It was that 90s time when grunge and rock, it was really sort of kind of all over the place. Kind of funny to think about Dave Matthews next to Nirvana, but that's how it was back then. And then Crash Into Me was huge, and that was sort of everywhere and did very well on pop stations. And then I feel like before These Crowded Streets came out, there was a little bit of a slowdown. Things got kind of sharply back towards pop music, in radio at least in New York City. And there was a lot of fall off. People weren't playing Dave as much. Still hugely popular, still sold well. But as far as radio play goes, it kind of decreased a little bit, except for on WPLJ. They played Don't Drink the Water a lot in heavy rotation. And I remember when I was younger listening to Dave on WPLJ. Again, like I said, it was one of the rare stations that played them. So there was a relationship between Dave Matthews and WPLJ. Well, WPLJ went off the air this past Friday. It was their last broadcast because the company that they work for sold them to a Christian rock radio company. So, like every other radio geek, I tune in because I want to hear what the last hour is, the last couple songs they play. And I come across this story told by this guy, Steve Borneman, who used to work for WPLJ. And he tells a story about Blythedale Children's Hospital. So this is a children's hospital in New York who cater to children with complex medical and rehabilitative needs. So hard thing to be a part of. They are doing incredible work for children who are in really tough spots. And WPLJ for a number of years teamed up with Blythedale, and they put on these exclusive shows where artists would come in and they would perform for the sick kids, which was a really nice thing to do, obviously. And so Steve Borneman tells this story where Dave Matthews comes in one year to perform, and he actually was upset by what happened with Dave's performance. Here's Steve calling in to Race Taylor on the last hour of PLJ, telling this story that you probably never heard about Dave Matthews.
Blythedale was my favorite day of the year. It's a hospital with severely disabled children, and we always had big artists came and they'd play and they would hang out with the children, and it was such a special place. But anyway, one year, Dave Matthews was our guest, and Cyndi Lauper was there, and Cyndi was there, and she was hanging out, talking to the kids, and spending the whole afternoon or morning with all the children. Dave Matthews gets up, and he plays 2 songs, and he leaves. And I'm like, well, what's with that? Why don't you hang out with the kids? And I was really pretty upset with Dave Matthews. So I let the weekend go by, and I talked to Tom Cuddy on Monday morning, and I said, Tom, what was with Dave Matthews? He had no time for the children. He played 2 or 3 songs, and he left. And Tom said, well, what you don't know is what Dave didn't want anybody to know is when the kids that couldn't come to the room where everybody was, they were stuck in their hospital rooms because they were so sick, Dave went around to every single room and played an acoustic guitar and played songs and sang to all the kids that couldn't make it into the big room. And I said, wow, that is just such an amazing story. And his stock went way up.
So isn't that crazy? So in the last hour of this legendary station that's been around for 48 years, they spun some Dave, and Steve told this story about Dave going to Blythedale, and they would all gather in the main room, and all the kids would come down, and there were some kids that were too sick to be moved. And there was Dave running around from room to those children, playing songs for them in their room. Isn't that a wonderful story? I really I was tuning in because I'm a radio geek, and I'm like, oh, what songs are they going to play? And this and that. And then I saw they played a Dave song, and I was like, oh. And then that story I heard. And again, I was just blown away by that, reinvigorated. Like, you admire somebody. Obviously, I'm a fan of Dave and all that. And, there's obviously charitable works and all these great things that he's done over the course of his career. But even still, knowing that he's a decent dude, you hear a story like that, and it kind of puts a smile on your face. And lifts you up a little bit. So hopefully it lifted you guys up here on the morning show with Anthony Vlog. Sad to see WPLJ go, but this, as I tell everybody, and all the hardcore radio people know, this is the business we've chosen. And those kinds of things happen. So, sad about PLJ, but thought it was a killer move by Race Taylor to have Steve on to tell that story. And also that little nugget of he didn't want anybody to know. Like, he didn't want to tell everybody in the room, because people, they would raise money and people would pay to go see these, this crazy exclusive show. They had huge artists, Rob Thomas and Bon Jovi, I think, did it. Like, a lot of great artists did the Blythedale gig. And, people, and they would raise a lot of money, and it's so much easier to say, Dave's only doing 3 because he was going to spend the rest of his time going up and playing for the other 6 kids. So he didn't want anybody to even know that part of it. And that little thing too, just again, goes to show you what kind of a guy he is.